evening, everybody. Welcome to Captain's Log Supplemental. My name is Stanford, and I am joined this week by just Rob.
Hello.
And this week we're doing something a little special. We got kind of a bonus episode for you because a few weeks ago we did the musical episode of Strange New Worlds, and I happen to know a guy who knows a thing or two about musicals, so I thought it'd be fun to talk to him. He is my cousin, a Mr. Peter Duchan. Hi, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad.
Good.
Not too bad. I, like a good cousin, of course, know exactly how to describe you and your career. But for our listeners at home, could you give us like a rundown of who you are and why you're super important?
That's very nice. I think in the eyes of like my 6-year-old nephew, I'm important because I have a Wikipedia page. That's enough. That's the bar at this point, which is a really low bar because you can create it yourself, which I did not. But point is, I am a writer, a playwright is sort of how I would describe myself. But my relevance here is that I also do a thing called writing the book of musicals. The book of a musical is not like a novel. The book of a musical is basically, if you think of a musical, you think of the music and the lyrics, take those away, it's everything else. The story, the dialogue, the structure, the sort of concept, all that stuff. So that is what a book writer does in a musical. And I've had some mild success doing that professionally. I wrote a musical called Dogfight that was off Broadway and has been produced all over the world, which has been really cool. And then I've worked as a consultant on other people's musicals, including on the musical Waitress, which has been everywhere now, which is a great success and was on Broadway for 4 years. And then they've recently announced a couple of cool things I have coming up, which is I'm writing the book of the musical Practical Magic, based on the novel by Alice Hoffman. And I'm co-writing the book with Alice Hoffman. And then just the other day in the New York Times, Nick Jonas let it slip that he and I are writing a show together. So that's some cool news.
Wow. That's real cool.
Yes, you are by far my most recognizably accomplished family member. So I really appreciate you giving us some of your very precious time.
I'm thrilled to be here. It was actually very fun to watch this episode, not to jump ahead.
Sure. So, now, as kind of relevant to Rob and I, Dogfight, and I happen to know this about you, you actually spent some time in Japan for that, right?
I did. That was after the fact, like after we'd created it. A couple years later, you write these shows and then the hope is that they enter, the dream is that they enter the canon, but first they're sort of, do they enter the circuit? Do they get performed? Are people interested in producing them and seeing them? And we got really, lucky that people have wanted to see Dogfight. And a couple of years after we did it in New York in 2012, in 2015, was the first production in Japan produced by Toho, which is a huge company there that I think made Godzilla back in the day.
Yeah, that's them. Yeah,
totally. So they were really cool. And they produced it, so it was very cool, to have a wonderful excuse to go to Japan. And then since then, I've worked in Japan on a couple of other things, and I love the place.
That's
awesome.
That's very cool. So when does Dogfight enter the the high school adaptation circuit?
Well, that's a tricky thing, to be totally honest, because Dogfight has some content issues that would make that difficult. I believe, and this is not my joke, so I can't take credit for it, I believe my friend Nick, who was in the original production, was like, they do these things in MTI, which is Music Theater International, which is a licensing agent. They do these things called junior. So like Into the Woods Junior, Les Mis Junior, that kind of a thing. And they're sort of abbreviated. They're made a little bit easier to perform for high school students, kind of a thing. And they take out some of the questionable content. So my friend Nick, who was in our original production, once joked that the Dogfight Junior production would be about 5 minutes long. Because there's too much sort of racy content built into it. And we created alternate lines for high schools, and it's been done by high schools, but they're pretty adventurous high schools.
Yeah. That's funny because you said all of that and I did not. I always wondered how a musical went from, the big capital B Broadway production down to my middle school did a run of Little Abner when I was there. So yeah,
there's a lot of steps and people along the way too. Right. Even just reformatting the thing. Sometimes people look at me and they're like, "Oh, why do you do that format?" And I'm like, because someday, no matter what format you do, it's going to have to be turned into this format. Start there. That's what I say now. I learned that once.
Yeah.
Having to reformat an entire script after the fact, kind of a thing.
Fascinating. So one of the questions that we ask all of our guests, and I know that this might bring up some trauma, so I do apologize ahead of time. But can you tell me like your earliest relationship with Star Trek itself?
Sure. I come from a Star Trek house. My immediate family is a Star Trek family, particularly driven by my father and older brother Josh. So my memories are, number one, Wrath of Khan, Worms in the Ear. That is a vivid childhood memory. And
Sure.
I remember kind of loving it. Yes, it was disgusting and terrifying, but I remember I wasn't like, oh no, Star Trek is on, I have to leave the room. I never loved it the way my older brother did. I'm not sure I've seen all 6 movies in order, but I did see Undiscovered Country in theaters. I remember that.
Oh, so did I, actually. That's the first Star Trek movie I saw in theaters. Because I think
that was the first Star Trek movie I saw in theaters.
Right, I think I'm a couple years younger than you, so...
You are indeed. And I'm 28, so you must be a little bit younger than that.
Yeah, 26, exactly. Perfect.
Yep, totally. But really it was Next Generation. There were definitely episodes of the original series that were on, and I know that my older brother had a couple on VHS. I know he had the episode that was like the lead into Wrath of Khan.
Starseed.
Because I knew that was a big deal to him when he found that, however that ended up in his possession. But Next Generation was the regular thing. Next Generation was the thing where I was like, oh, I want to see what Whoopi Goldberg is going to wear. And I loved, there was an episode with Deanna Troi where she had a child that like aged backwards and died, or a child that aged quickly or something. There was like I was really into Deanna Troi as well.
That was Star Child, I think. Yeah,
that one really stayed with me.
Yeah, she got impregnated by that random entity.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. So my relationship with it is, it's a club that I visit every other week, but I don't consider myself a member.
Sure. Okay. I assume your father, being a little older than us, I assume his favorite was like the TOS stuff, the original series stuff.
I actually don't know. I think he loved the movies, but he was a big, I'll say this, long after, we'd left the house, he was still investing in the new series. So like, I don't know if Josh, my older brother, watched, Voyager or some of the later things.
Right.
I have no idea, where he was in life. Whereas my father, I'm pretty sure he watched all that.
That actually
Deep Space Nine. I remember Deep Space Nine quite vividly, but never watched really.
That doesn't surprise me because Uncle Brian always seemed like up for a good flick or whatever. Like he seemed like he watched a lot of movies and just really kind of enjoyed a lot of different kind of stuff.
Yeah, there was always like an episode of Jag on the TiVo.
Right. Yeah.
He's like a true cinephile then, huh?
Certainly in the Star Trek, cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So, is this so like I unfortunately had to make you watch the musical episode of Strange New Worlds. But just before we get to that, I have a more general question for you. As what I would term, like as a layman, a musical expert, do you like it when TV shows do this, when they have like the random musical episode kind of thrown in, or do you find it hokey, or do you find it like they're kind of cribbing on your style?
That's a really good question. To be honest, I've avoided them.
Really? Okay.
In general. Both because, my experience as a person who actually really loves the musical theater form, and I consider musicals, I think we're sort of the form that is most judged by its worst entries. People see one bad musical and they're like, I hate musicals.
Right.
But you read one bad book and you don't stop reading books. Like it seems a little crazy to me. But so I avoid them because I think sometimes Hollywood and TV stuff, they think that if people are singing, it can't be about anything. And I think what the Broadway musical has proven to us over and over again is it can be about it can be very, it can be about an adaptation of Don Quixote. It can be about a cannibal barber. It can be about people, USO in the South Pacific, et cetera, and it can be about real ideas. But then I think sometimes in Hollywood, as soon as people start singing, it gets really flimsy and breathy and limp. So I've kind of avoided them. I also avoid them in the past because I have a weird aversion to like when the series changes location, like when ER would like go to Africa, or even when they would go to like a different part of Chicago and find tuberculosis. I was like, just stay in the building.
Oh,
that's
okay.
where I watch it. like I'm like, I like the rules of this. I'm too rigid to really go with it.
Sure.
So I guess
Now,
coming at that same kind of theme from like a different direction. I know like my wife Kelsey, she really loves God, I don't even know how to explain it. Like non-traditional musicals. Like we went and saw Green Day the musical or
sure, American Idiot.
yes, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Evil Dead the musical was
Sure.
amazing. Like they had a splash section, which was hilarious.
Wow.
Like how do you feel about stuff like that?
I think it's great. See, I'm a big believer in, people, I think there is room for all kinds of things. I think that only makes like the quote unquote musical theater stronger. I think that the more narrow it gets or homogenous it gets, the less exciting it's going to be. When you know what you're going to see when you sit down in the audience, it sucks. And there's a lot of times, even myself, where I sit down and it's exactly, what I thought it was going to be, or it seems like it was born in a lawyer's office, or, like it where it doesn't actually have the excitement. So I think if you can find the excitement in any tone or genre, within the form, I'm game.
See Stanford, and this is why holodeck episodes are so great.
Oh my God. Okay. So let's not get off topic here. Okay. So I guess like, let's start with the basics. Like, did you, we don't work for Paramount. We have no skin in the game here. So you could be as honest as you want. Did you enjoy the episode?
Very nearly. which is high praise. I swear that's actually high praise. Considering, look, when I said yes to this, I had convinced myself it was an old episode of The Next Generation. So I thought I would kind of jump in with people who I knew, and I knew who they were. Now, when I went to Next Generation and started looking season 2, episode 9, obviously I did not find Subspace Rhapsody. I figured out that it was Strange New Worlds, and I was like, oh shit, I don't know who these people are.
Sure.
Can I swear?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, phew.
I'm on good behavior right now, but usually I have a filthy mouth. You've met my mom.
Great. So
like Mariah has a predictive algorithm where she can tell how bad an episode actually was based on how many fucks Stanford drops in a single sentence.
Oh wow. Well, maybe this is a good episode because we've been so clean.
Well, this is a special guest episode, so I try to be on my best behavior.
Well. But no, I actually really liked it. There was one point in the episode where I wrote down that they had said something and I wrote down, well, this makes sense because in a musical we sing when the emotions are so heightened that spoken word won't suffice.
Right.
And then 10 minutes later, Celia Gooding is saying, in a musical, etc. And I appreciated how much the episode on the whole seemed to respect musicals.
Okay.
There were certain songs within it that I was like, okay, this is an example of this sort of tentpole type of a song in a musical, a charm song or an I want song, that kind of a thing.
Interesting. So do you think from your kind of professional analysis, do you think that they definitely had someone who knew their stuff kind of in the background of this? It wasn't just like a typical Hollywood musical hack job then?
Well, I wouldn't even say that a typical Hollywood job is a hack job. You know what I mean? I think it's just from a different experience in a different audience. So it's just a different thing. And I think nowadays, frankly, there's more overlap than ever. If you look at best song nominees at the Oscars any given year in the last decade, most of the nominees are people who have a show on Broadway at the time. I think there's actually a tremendous overlap in this particular moment. So I think they did. Clearly, they liked musicals, which is really nice because sometimes you experience these things and you think, oh, great, people who have disdain for this form are making fun of this thing. I don't think that this made fun of it. I think it actually took it very seriously and used it and made it integral to the story that they were telling in the episode, which I thought was really smart.
Yeah, so I guess just a little background, because we have a chance to talk about the episodes, do a little bit of research before we talk about them each week. There are a number of members of the Strange New World cast that have experience doing musicals or experience on a stage, and they petitioned for months just to the writer room, to the executives, just to see hey, can we do this? Is it possible? It'd be really cool. Sure. And they finally bought it after I think it was Celia Rose Gooding, the actress who plays Uhura. They caught her singing, kind of ad-libbing a part in a previous episode, and they're like, oh, we have actors that can actually sing.
But how did they not know that? I mean, look, she's a Tony-nominated actor.
I know.
Is she really? Oh, okay.
She is. She was nominated for Best Featured Actress in a Musical for a show called Jagged Little Pill, probably 2021, maybe.
I'm a little disappointed. That's like one of my very favorite albums, and I didn't realize it was a musical until it like had come and gone. So
well, it had the misfortune to sort of straddle the pandemic in terms of like when it opened, that kind of a thing. So, which is no good for anybody. But funnily enough, I actually sat next to her at a gala like 2 weeks ago. Her mother is a very celebrated Broadway actress. She's a Tony winner as a producer and as a performer. Her name is LaChance, and she was being honored at a gala that two of my friends were being honored at as well. So we were just sitting around the table, and Celia was an utter delight, and I completely forgot that she was on this show, to be totally honest. I remember I'd seen her in the musical and thought that she was terrific, but she was quite young then. That was 5 years ago, something like that. And then there she was as Uhura.
That's wild. It's wild to me that, of course, it's you. Like, of course, you sat next to this woman 2 weeks ago.
And had, frankly, no idea that she was on this show.
Right? Yeah. Oh, my
God. And then when
I
saw her, I remembered, a couple years ago when they announced.
Yeah, because if I had known, I'd have given you, like, a list of questions to ask her for me. So did you have, like, a favorite piece of music from this particular episode?
Yeah, I actually really liked, it was maybe the second or third number. It was what I would call a charm song, which in a musical theater parlance is like a number that's bright and not necessarily like tied to a really strong dramatic moment. It's meant to entertain and to, obviously charm. But it would be the number between Rebecca Romaine and was it Kirk?
Yes. Yeah, where they're in the hallway. Yeah.
Yeah, where they're in the hallway, and it was like kind of like bouncy. It felt like it was a very loving parody of a charm song to me. And it felt like a little, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers-y kind of old school like duet. And I loved that it was, I love two things about that. One, that it was a platonic duet, that it didn't seem to me to be about any kind of relationship between them sexually.
Right.
But in the world of musicals, when you sing with somebody, it implies a certain sexual or romantic connection. So when La'an, is that her name?
Yeah, the British woman with the dark hair.
Yeah,
Christina
when
Chung,
she observed, I loved that, like, her interpretation of that was all she saw from the distance was they're making music together. Okay, these are big feelings. They, and got jealous, and it's what's inspired her to sing what I would call is the like I want song in the piece, which not every, but the vast majority of musicals have what's called an I want song, which is basically where the protagonist tells us what they want.
Right. Okay.
It's that simple. And that's exactly what she did. She used 3 or 4 different metaphors, that, shifting her paradigm, taking the wheel or letting go of the wheel, that kind of stuff. And, she said, I want to change. I want to make a change in myself.
Sure. Sorry, I'm trying to let you finish because I want to make sure the recording picks you up more than me. But that's all like I don't know how to analyze music that way. So I really appreciate your insight there because that's very interesting. I also I'm a sucker for duets. I really like them. But like that's as far as it's like, oh, this is a duet. This is great. Like that's all I know, And I don't know like how pedestrian it makes me sound, but like my favorite song was the in the mess hall with Chapel when she's singing like at Spock about how she's gonna break up with him.
She's gonna move on, yeah.
Right. So I had, I guess, like erroneously kind of written off the Romaine and Kirk duet as kind of like, oh, this is like a fun little song, but I like some of these other ones a little better. But now having heard your kind of analysis of it, it makes a lot more sense slotting it in that kind of perspective.
For me, that was when the conceit kind of clicked in and I was like, oh, I think they're like doing something sort of cool here. Prior to that, because so much of it is like, I am singing, why am I singing, what's going on? It feels almost a little bit like, forgive me, like Amelia Perez. I don't know if either of you saw that movie, but like where they like do like a gender reassignment surgery, gender confirmation surgery, like, and it's like doctors being like, scalpel, please.
I heard scalpel. About that.
Yes. It's like, it's stuff like that where I'm like, oh, but this is not really what we do in musical theater.
Right.
This is how you parody musical theater. So it was nice to see that they actually landed in a space that felt more like inhabiting something rather than like pointing a finger at something.
Yeah, it was interesting, and like talking about it afterwards, especially with Chris and Stanford, because they're most of my experience with musicals, like I played violin for 13 years. I was in the pit in like all the middle school and high school productions, and like we went and salsa plays, and like I was saying, Kelsey's a fan of some of the more non-standard stuff, I guess. So like it's all fun, and I really love it. And it's cool though that they seem to have really understood the structure of musicals and kind of like leaned into that more. So hearing you kind of confirm that is pretty cool. Like it's fun that they actually did their homework. They did take it seriously, and they made something fun out of it.
Yeah, even when they were saying things like, what we need here is an ensemble number. You know what I mean? Like things that could have been really not as warm as I felt like they were. I just thought the whole thing was very loving towards musicals, which I appreciated. The issue wasn't at the end of the day, ugh, we hate singing. The issue was we're going to reveal things about ourselves that are too big and too scary to reveal, which is much more interesting, frankly, to me.
Yeah. I think it was Lon who posed it as like a national security risk almost.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny.
I think there was a moment that I loved where I don't know the characters' names, but they were two people who on the deck they're at sort of like stations that look like drafting tables with lots of lights on them. And they both caught themselves doing a synchronized movement at the same time in that first scene where they were like, are we singing? Why am I singing? Like that stuff. I just thought that was like a really nice visual moment where two people going, wait a minute, I'm using a vernacular I'm not used to. Why am I doing this?
Right. That's Ortegas and Mitchell. They're at the con, and that those two actors actually do a pretty good job playing off of each other in every episode. But that was an excellent moment there for them. So do you have it sounds like it might have been the first piece where they were doing the singing part, but do you think were there any pieces of music that just didn't work for you?
I don't think there was any piece that like outright didn't work for me.
Okay.
I think that any complaints that I could have about the music in this episode, I think are complaints that one could lodge at most theaters on Broadway any night of the week.
Oh, sure.
So, like we all want music to be even better than it is. But like, I think that what was clear to me was that they understood the assignment and they delivered it. They knew, what was actually being asked. And I think that the songs fit the moments. And I don't feel like the songs stopped the story. I think they were pretty smart about building that into the script itself. That like you can't just sing, I want to take a shower. There has to be like a real reason to do so, which is, funny to watch people on a Starship Enterprise talk about when that's what we talk about in meetings in my business all day long. I know you want these people to be there to add extra voices, but why are they there? There has to be a story reason,
So would you say like, I know your particular expertise is in writing the book of the musical. Do you feel like the script did good justice to the book of this version of their musical?
That's an interesting question because at the end of the day, right, this isn't the book of a musical, it's the teleplay of an episode of television, which isn't ultimately my expertise and is the expertise of the people who did it. So like, who am I to judge? But I felt as a viewer and a viewer with some basis of knowledge that like it was being executed, pretty strongly. I don't want to get you too excited. Don't shout too loudly. It'll be hard on the mics, but I would watch another episode. I mean, I left the experience going, oh, these people are, I was curious about what's going to happen with Kirk and La'an.
Sure, sure.
Or frankly, I'm actually really curious about what already happened, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
But you all are like a whole season or two ahead.
At this point, we are like 3 episodes beyond the musical one. So
no, I mean like in terms of them actually airing.
Oh yes, yeah. They just finished season 3, and that was broadcast like a month or 2 ago. Rob, that sound right?
Season 3? No, that was last year.
Was it that long ago? Jeez.
Yeah, season 4 is coming out a little over a month from now.
Okay,
very cool.
Now they're only like they're new TV, so it's only like 10 episodes a season.
Well, let's talk about Carol Kane for a second.
I'm not good at names. Which one's that?
Pelia?
Oh yes. Oh. Okay.
I can't believe. I mean, you are obviously a little younger than me. I mean, like Princess Bride. I mean, like, you know who she is.
No.
Right?
Yes, absolutely. I know who the actor is. I'm just so bad with names that I couldn't like immediately. Like Carol Kane doesn't mean anything to me as a phrase. But yes, absolutely. I've seen her in all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
And she's obviously not a woman who is known for singing in her projects, though she has done a Broadway musical. She did Wicked on Broadway for a little while. She played Madame Morrible.
Oh, cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But when they cut to her and they do the thing where they sort of mix the person you're looking at a little bit louder so you hear their voice in a group thing, and they cut to her and they did that, I was like, that is not her voice. Not in a million years is that her voice.
I do know some of the doctor, Dr. Mbenga, he's like the black doctor. I know his voice
with the blue shirt?
Yes, I know his voice is not his own. I know they had someone else come in to sing for him. So
his character also said, "I don't sing."
Right, which was actually
I don't do this.
I believe that was the joke because as the professional actor said, "I'm not singing. That's not what I do." So
Rebecca Romaine though kind of sounded great. Is that her voice?
I believe most of them are their actual voices, but it would not surprise me if maybe Carol Kane, maybe she opted out as well.
The one that I think surprised us the most, and I want to get your feel for it. So Ethan Peck, the guy who played Spock, was extremely nervous about this. And what the cast all said in interviews after the fact was like, the moment he started singing, we're all like, where did this baritone come from?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt.
Yeah, they were
also
all
because
like,
you don't
super
expect
impressed.
Spock to be able to sort of open his mouth and have a great voice, regardless.
Right, and this is like, I guess because you haven't watched a lot of the newer eras of Star Trek, like we had Leonard Nimoy back in the day playing Spock, but in the newer Star Trek, they have what everyone has affectionately termed Hot Spock because he's like objectively gorgeous, and he's got a very deep voice and a very impressive affect. Yeah.
I have seen those movies.
Oh, with Zachary Quinto. Yeah.
Movies wise, I kind of kept following along.
Mm-hmm.
Series wise, I couldn't keep up. Impossible.
Did you like the Kelvin movies?
Which are those? The newer
ones. Sorry,
the Chris Pine, Zach Quinto ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Except I'll remember. This was my reaction to the first one. There was a scene at like some sort of intergalactic. It was like an intergalactic governmental body, and some sort of Sonic the Hedgehog looking motherfucker like rolled down into the frame, and I was like, "This isn't Star Wars, friends." Like,
I think that was the third one. Yes,
it just didn't feel quite right to me. I was like, "We're bipeds in this world, like in these galaxies." Like
the best we get are like some humans with weird foreheads. That's what you get to work with. Yeah,
and that's enough. That's okay. We accept that.
Yeah,
I'm totally fine with that world. We all happen to produce sound similarly. I'm completely okay with that. So I did enjoy those movies. I also love there are Broadway stars peppered throughout these movies. That's the thing you may not even realize.
Is that more common today than it used to be like 10, 20, 30 years ago? Because I feel like it seems more often than not. It turns out like, this famous actor had a stint on Broadway for a while.
That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to it because the biggest example I'm thinking of in my head, biggest to me, I'm sure not to the audience, but to me is Donna Murphy, who was in, oh God, what's the one? Picard falls in love with her on like a planet that's beautiful. And like everybody's happy on this planet, and Picard almost stays.
Is that the Risa? Or
it's
Inner Light, Rob?
It's not.
It could be Inner Light.
It's not Generations.
Oh, is it a movie? Oh, it's a movie. You're talking about Insurrection.
Insurrection. There you go.
Yes, and I know the actor you're talking about now. Yeah,
Donna Murphy, who's like a 2-time Tony Award-winning, actress in musicals. The King and I, Passion. She's done many, classic and new musicals on Broadway and stuff. But are actors more likely to make these crossovers? I wonder if that's a function of the fact that there's just more content.
Right.
This Paramount Plus didn't exist. Does this air on CBS actually, or is it just Paramount Plus?
Just Paramount Plus.
Right, so we wouldn't have had that before. It's like, The Good Fight or whatever. So I feel like there just are so many more. There's Crackle now. There's always some, I just think there's more need and more demand. I think there also is more supply than there ever was.
Sure.
But I always think there's a kind of like a classic way to fame is, a couple of years in New York doing off-Broadway shows, do a Broadway show, you get picked up, you do a sitcom, you do a drama series, and then suddenly if you live in LA now.
Do you think that's where you're headed then? You're going to start writing like TV books and then...
No. And also, I'm talking about people in this timeline, I'd have had to make this transition a long time ago. No, and also it doesn't quite work. I mean, for writers, this is really for actors.
Sure, sure.
Writers, I think it used to be a little bit more like that, but the TV world particularly is in such flux. Like pandemic, strike, new contracts, AI. There's so much turmoil that like the concept of the sort of writer's room, it has really changed versus what it would have been 20 years ago. They're always smaller. Some shows don't have writers' rooms. It's just a very different thing than it used to be. Whereas actors, I think, and their paths are still largely the same.
Got it. Okay.
So this might be a weird question, like working in a more creative industry than mine. So like I work in software primarily, and I guess like, do you get any sort of push to like force you into using AI to help you like speed through scripts or anything?
God, no. Much the opposite. People are like, AI is like, persona non grata in my world. But I have to say, I'm not particularly, actually, this is like, why would I even say this into the world? But it's not that I'm not particularly worried about AI in theater. I am. I think that AI poses, confusions, and I think it poses a threat to our existence as a human race. Who knows? But theater is human beings in a room together. It's the very definition of theater. If I'm sitting across from you at a campfire and telling you a story, at the end of the day, that's theater. That is never going to go away. Broadway could go away. The commercial industry that we understand could go away. Climate change could affect that. It's all, based in New York City. Who the heck knows what's going to happen? But in terms of the AI thing, I think that there's always going to be in my foreseeable future, I think there's going to be a premium in humanness, and theater delivers that experience. So I think that when we are inundated with AI this and AI slop, which we're kind of on that path already, when you sit down in the Broadway theater or at a theater off Broadway or off Broadway or at your local community theater, you see a human being in front of you performing some sort of experience for you, trying to stoke some sort of emotional reaction in you. And there's a realness of that is undeniable, that in a world where we are constantly cynical about how fake everything is, I think is going to be necessary and vital, personally.
No.
That's a very uplifting perspective, because from the kind of software oriented perspective, it's just nightmares watching these people who have all of the control and all of the money in these industries forcing everyone into AI. But to hear you say AI can't replace this is actually, that's very encouraging. So thank you for that.
Well, one little sliver. I mean, honestly, it's like, I can be worried about the micro of theater. I can be worried about the micro of like a whole class of people who are going to get pushed out of, where they're too educated and there aren't jobs for these things because the AI is doing it. But mostly I'm worried about shit happening like in the Terminator. Like, genuinely.
Right. And Skynet.
Like, not to be like terribly reductive about it, but the thing that I find sort of fascinating, and the question I ask myself, and I'm sure somebody who's really knowledgeable is like, that's a really dumb question. But like, if we hadn't have like thought of the Terminator and put it out there, would AI think of it? It's a purely derivative thing.
Oh,
did we
shit.
give them that thought?
Yeah, because if the training data includes Terminator, we're screwed.
It does, of course it does. It includes Julia Child's cookbooks. It includes, the Quran. It includes everything.
That's a good point. That's oof.
There's this concept. It's like I think philosophical, like metaphysical kind of concept of the basilisk, which is supposed to be like this world-ending AI. And the moment you learn about the basilisk, you're now obligated to be polite to AI and serve all of its needs, because eventually one day the basilisk will exist, and if you didn't support its existence, it will seek to exterminate you. Like, it's this wild, like,
wow.
Just concept.
Basically, it makes you say please and thank you to your Alexa.
Sure. Yeah. Which is interesting because my best friend Kristen has an Alexa that she uses regularly, but she calls it computer, and she believes very strongly in not like humanizing it at all. She doesn't say please and thank you to it.
There's a lot of that's not bad. That's a good thing, probably.
I think it's based on some sort of article she read at some point, but yeah.
Sure. To kind of steer us towards, kind of back on target here. Do you think that and this is it's not like I've been approached by anyone. Do you think like a Star Trek Broadway show would work?
This is a very interesting question. I think, is there a built-in fan base? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fan base going to be baseline skeptical? Yes.
Okay.
But beyond that, I've actually worked on a project, I can't name it, but because it's disappeared and it went never into the ether, but it was an adaptation of a sitcom from the 90s. And one of the things I learned doing that, and in the process of it, I watched all sorts of, like the Beverly Hillbillies movie, the Brady Bunch movie. What happens when you take something that is episodic by nature and then turns it into a 2-hour event? How do you do that? And I think that they can often be really, really unsatisfying. That said, Star Trek has successfully done that many, many times in the world of cinema. So, and in fact, that it came first as a sitcom, TV series, and then it was a series of very successful movies. So, like, obviously, it can be done, but I think it's like you have to toe a really, very thin or blurry or both line where you want to serve the fans, but you also can't deliver something they've already seen before.
Right.
So, is it like a very special episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, or is it the characters from Deep Space Nine doing adventures you've seen them do before? It gets really complicated, and I don't know that there's a good answer. And I can't think, other than musical you mentioned, Lil Abner, I can't think of many shows that took something episodic and turned it into an event successfully. It's really hard.
I guess this is gonna be embarrassing because I was in that show, but Lil Abner was like a television show before it was a musical?
I think it was a comic strip. So they were pulling from a series of comic strips where those are like,
I did not realize that.
2-joke setups, but they set up over time a world.
Interesting.
But I think the television series, I can't believe I'm saying this. What an idiot. Literally 2 nights ago, the Tony Award for Best Musical went to an adaptation of a TV series. That is Schmigadoon. Whether you're a fan or not important. Point is, that was a TV series, but it was built to be musical.
Right, okay.
So it was like it lent itself to adaptation, and the whole point of it is that it's like a parody of musicals anyway. So it's like but they did actually, I think, a very good job in slimming as much as they could the focus for this one night of musical experience.
So in like that kind of vein of adapting things into musicals, do you have a general opinion on when they take a musical and make like a feature film out of it, a la Chicago, Rent, like those kind of bigger movies that were based on Broadway's?
Sure. I think in a lot of cases it's inevitable, right? If it's a successful property, people want to like wring as much from it as they can, not just financially, but yes, financially. But they want the most people to see this thing, right? Like, we've had Hamilton on Disney Plus. Do I think we're going to get a Hamilton movie? I'm sure we will someday.
Oh,
I don't know if it's in the works now. It may be. I have no idea. But the point is, like, I just think when a thing is that big a juggernaut, Fiddler on the Roof was on Broadway in 1963, 1960. No, it was 1965 maybe. That movie didn't come out until 1971, something like that. 1970.
It's somewhere in there, yeah.
West Side Story. It took 4 years, maybe it's not that long. But In the Heights, I think, took 10 years. Like, I think, these things, they'll make it if they want. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, point blank. I'm sort of against blanket statements in general. So I think it depends on a case-by-case basis. But I think, of course, there's a desire to take something that worked in one medium and see if it works in another. My favorite, probably, example of it is the musical Cabaret, the movie, because the musical on stage and the movie musical are actually extremely different. There's like a lot of Venn diagram overlap, but they have whole different characters and different plot lines and it's a different thing, and they're adapted from different stories from the same short story collection.
Interesting.
So they really are, when they made the movie of Cabaret, they created a different piece of art with many of the ingredients of the musical I know and love. And as a kid, I actually hated that. I hated that when I watched that movie that I didn't see the story that I expected from the cast album.
Right.
And as an adult, I was like, this is a damn good movie, because they sort of recognized what of this experience is innately theatrical and can't be recreated. And how do you make that cinematic?
We're going to have to put that on our list. Mariah and I have been like catching up on musicals that we hadn't seen. So like, I'm going to embarrassingly admit that the first time I ever watched Fiddler on the Roof was like a month ago.
And what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was great. It's funny because Mariah's like, this is where, and this is for our listeners, this is going to be anti-Semitic adjacent. So like, buckle up.
Well, you're Jewish adjacent. I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah. Mariah's like, this is where everyone gets their like stereotypes of Jewish people is from this movie. And I'm watching it and I'm like, yeah, I'm related to all of those people. Like I can point to each individual like stereotype and just like, yeah, that's Uncle Si or that's Uncle,
Sure.
Yeah. So it was funny because she's like, I don't understand how you never saw this, given that, like a full quarter of your family is Jewish. And I said, I think they just assumed I already had.
That's really funny. Fiddler on the Roof is one of the like sort of most universal musicals out there. There's a documentary about Fiddler on the Roof. I think it's called Miracle in Miracles. I could be wrong. But in it, I think Sheldon Harnick, the lyricist, tells a story about going to Japan to see the musical for the first time, maybe in the 70s or the 80s, who knows. And the Japanese producer turned to him watching this musical about, Jews in a shtetl in Eastern Europe, in Russia, and said, like, how did you know Japanese culture so well?
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Because there are certain things that are
right.
really just so universal about, that one generation is going to change the rules that the prior generation set up. And can we take that? Can that be accepted? What is beyond the pale?
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, there especially that kind of generational shift, not necessarily the pogrom stuff. Interesting.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Because the Japanese have a troubling history with that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, absolutely. Because given how traditional and family oriented the Japanese culture is, I'm actually not surprised that they saw some parallels there. That's fascinating. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna say, like, it's funny to me that it took so long for you to see it, only because like that like Music Man, there are like a couple others, but like they were kind of like the bog standard. Okay, the music teacher's out this week. Here's what the sub's gonna play for us in class. Like, I've probably watched Fiddler on the Roof at least half a dozen times throughout like just middle school and high school.
Sure, that's like that. We watched Space Jam with the Spanish track on.
Yeah, that's how you learn Spanish.
We called it Space Jamo, which obviously is not really
to this day, I'll go, mi nombre es Balto, because like that's what we watched in Spanish class was Balto in Spanish. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So what other movie musicals have you been watching, Matthew?
So we watched. Okay, so we've been doing things where we would show each other one that we had seen. So we watched Fiddler on the Roof. We watched Pirates of Penzance because I had seen that, but she hadn't seen it.
Is Angela Lansbury in that one?
Again, Peter, I'm going to remind you, I am not great with names.
Great.
It's got Kevin Kline
from Beauty
in it.
and the Beast.
Yes, she's in it. Yeah, that one. Yep. Okay.
That's the one. That was a Broadway production. That was a 1981 production on Broadway.
Which is funny because it actually mentions the HMS Pinafore in that show.
Yeah,
that's the show they break into.
And they go, "We'll sing a song from Rudagore," which is another musical because they had taken a song and just interpolated it. Like they rewrote lyrics, which is very in the spirit of the operetta, I think.
But what's kind of funny is I don't know if you remember how much of Star Trek Insurrection you remember. The one on the planet where he was going to stay with the woman. At the beginning of that, they're trying to get Data back, and Data had been working on HMS Pinafore, so they sing a song with him in order to like get him back. So there's actually Michael Dorn, Michael Dorn, Patrick Stewart, and Brent Spiner all sing the British Tar song from HMS Pinafore.
Brent Spiner, who I saw play the male lead in a Broadway musical in 1998, he was in 1776 on Broadway.
That's so funny.
He also was in Sunday in the Park with George, the original production in 1984 on Broadway and off Broadway. Real actual theater roots, Brent Spiner. Now, Matthew, I'm going to text you a list. You
Yes,
may not
please do.
know this
Please
about me,
do.
Rob, but I love to make a list.
Shit, he does.
Too many
Okay.
lists. But I have a list of movie musicals that I love, and I'm going to send it to you.
Yes, please. Because there's
some
some
good stuff on there.
There's some that we still haven't seen. Like, she's seen Rent. I haven't seen Rent yet. Which actually, a couple people from Star Trek Discovery are in the movie Rent.
Interesting.
And then I haven't seen. Neither of us have actually seen West Side Story yet. So those are on our list.
Oh my god! I mean, these are
I know we're not good at it, which is funny because I love musicals. Like, I really enjoy them, but I just like I don't know. I just, for some reason, I just don't sit down and watch them.
That was I think the first Broadway show I ever actually went and saw on Broadway was West Side Story.
Really?
When was that? Was that like 2007 or something like that?
No, it was earlier than that. I was in middle school or high school.
That was. Yeah, I wonder what production that was.
I don't know. But then I forget if it was. Oh, you know what? Maybe that wasn't the first. Like, Cats might have been the first one I saw.
And Cats is back on Broadway now.
Is it really?
Is it really?
I didn't know that.
They've reset it at a drag ball. So instead of like the Jellicle Ball being a gathering of cats,
awesome.
I mean, I think they are still cats because they sing about fish paste, but they're drag queens doing as if it's like an actual drag ball competition. It's actually very, very joyful.
We did watch that movie.
Oh.
The newer version of it. Yeah, that was a thing.
You mean The Experiment in Uncanny Valley?
Yeah.
It's that one's a little rough to look at. I still love the music.
I did have like a technical question for you.
Sure.
Because one of the things I like to do is like I'll go find the albums to listen to from like the Broadway cast recordings and stuff. Is there a studio that does those that like all the cast goes to? They don't like record them on stage, right?
Oh, you mean like are they going to a physical space? Absolutely. Listen, it's a dated example of the process, but if you want to see the process of how a Broadway cast album is made, there's a documentary by D.A. Pennebaker called Original Cast Album, maybe Original Cast Recording, something, Company. And it is a document of the cast of Company in 1971, maybe 1970, but roughly around there. It's a Stephen Sondheim show, and they are recording their cast album, and it really shows you how it was done back in the day, which is definitely at a studio. And back in the day, it was like a studio where there was a full orchestra and all the singers being mic'd in the same space, bleeding into each other, and it was all being gathered in one take.
Wow.
Nowadays, every singer in a Broadway cast album is in their own booth so that their voice can be
Sure.
isolated.
Okay.
Oftentimes, the orchestra has already been recorded. There's also like union issues that they have to deal with. Like, I don't know exactly what the rules are now. I think at some point, the cast album fee was basically like, for every day you record the cast album, you got like a week's salary or something, maybe 2 weeks. I forget what it is. I'm not getting the details right. But the point is that the number of days is a big deal. So historically, cast albums are recorded in one day.
Wow. Okay.
So and that's usually on the day off. Historically, it often, back in the day, happened like the day after they opened. You would open, you have the day off, you go, record this cast album. There are some shows that record the day after they close, that happens too.
Interesting.
But Original Cast Recording Company is a fantastic documentary. It's like 50 minutes long. It's great and includes the great Elaine Stritch, has like an absolute breakdown because they sort of left her song to the last one in the night and her voice is busted by the time they get there.
Oh,
She's
no.
in a bad mood, and it's great. It's great documentary.
It's very dramatic.
Have you ever seen,
it gets dark.
Have you ever seen the stand-up comedian John Panette?
No.
So he did a little work on Broadway. God, it must have been early 2000s with Hairspray. And he was talking in one of his shows about how his doctor prescribed him steroids. And he's like, "Why are you giving me steroids?" He's like, "You're going to need this in a couple of weeks." And it was just because of all the vocal work you wind up doing. It takes a toll physically on you after a while.
Oh, sure. And I mean, there's the other joke, which is also an Elaine Stritch joke, where she says, it's like the prostitute says, it's not the work, it's the stairs. Because every one of these theaters, these actors are running up and down 3 or 4 flights of stairs over and over and over again all night long. Your dressing room, unless you're the star, is not on the same level as the stage. So, you are running around and then to the basement to cross under the stage and to go, people talk all the time. And the guy who was doing played Shrek, they couldn't keep him heavy because he was losing so much weight
Oh,
between, like, it was
Oh,
doing all of that
fascinating.
with a huge costume on, all the weight
Right.
and sweat it,
Wow. Do do you have I don't know, like, if this might be a really simple question that you're gonna laugh at. Do you have, like, a favorite musical?
Yeah, well, I don't think that's a stupid question at
Well,
all.
I don't know if, like, because you're such a connoisseur that, like, it might, I don't know if it would be hard for you to just pick one favorite, or you have, like, favorite in different
Oh, I
genres,
mean,
or
I'm not decisive enough to pick one of in any category of anything. I can't
sure.
even pick, one thing I hate the most. That would be difficult. Um, but musicals that I love, absolutely. I actually keep a note on my phone that is my 100 favorite musicals, ostensibly in order. So I can tell you offhand that my favorite musical that I usually say when people ask is The Most Happy Fella. It's a musical from 1956 or 57, um, based on a play called They Knew What They Wanted. And it's just a really beautiful story about an over the hill Northern California vintner and the woman he writes love letters to and sends somebody else's photo to. And it's just a really beautiful, very sort of operatic, actually, which is not usually my inclination. Um, but it's a really beautiful score.
wait, is the vintner catfishing someone? Is that what's
Kind of,
happening?
actually, it's true.
Oh, that's
It's
so
really
funny.
complicated. He catfishes her, and then she figures it out, obviously, when she goes, and then she sleeps with this foreman, and then she gets pregnant, and then he's like, "I'll raise the baby. It's going to be Tony's Bambino." It's really, it's lovely. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I love that. I happen to love Fiddler on the Roof. I think Fiddler on the Roof is one of the, from the point of view of a book writer, which can also be called a librettist, because the book is called the libretto often. Um, what Joe Stein did on Fiddler on the Roof is extraordinary. I genuinely pull it off the shelf all the time, just to be like, how does he manage this changes of tone? It's funny, it's sad,
Right.
it's great. I love Sweeney Todd. I love Chorus Line. I love Cabaret. So, like, those are classics. And I love all sorts of things. Dreamgirls. There are a lot of great musicals out there. I often, when people are like, I don't like musicals, I'm like, you just haven't seen the right one. You haven't met
Sure.
the right
Yeah,
musical.
yeah. Cool. I think, like, you've definitely run through all the questions I had. I don't know if Rob, is there any other questions you had?
No, I feel like we hit the highlights.
I'm just looking at the notes I took when I was watching, and I think we hit all of it.
Okay, cool. That is important. Is there, like, so consuming kind of your art, is there any kind of advice you give people, or especially people who may not know a lot about musicals, or may not, because I know you just said, like, you just haven't met the right one. Like, what if someone wanted to get into it but wasn't sure where to start? How like, do you have, like, an on ramp you suggest to people?
Yeah, I think, and it's not specific, but I think you have to follow your own taste, and you have to not judge your own taste. It's like, do I sit here in 2026 thinking that The Phantom of the Opera is a great musical? If I'm being honest with you, I don't. But when I was 10 years old, I thought The Phantom of the Opera was a great musical. It was gateway. It was like
Sure.
it led to a refining of taste that eventually meant kissing goodbye, to this thing that I don't really care for anymore. But like, why judge yourself? Especially if you're new to something. We also have so much access at our fingertips that we didn't have years ago. I fell in love with musicals. I went to the Westport Public Library in Connecticut, and I was taking out the scripts to shows. I was taking out physical CDs, all of the VHS movie musicals back in the day. Um, and now you can go to Apple Music or Spotify, and if you like Sutton Foster, you can see 7 cast recordings that Sutton Foster was on. And then maybe you'll discover, wow, I really like that musical Violet that Sutton Foster did. What else has that composer Janine Tesori done? Okay, she did Fun Home, et cetera, et cetera. And you just have this sort of web of access that you didn't have before. So I think, like, you, in terms of refining your own taste and finding what you like, it's like, there's almost no excuse. It's like when somebody says, I don't like country music. It's like, well, you just haven't heard country music that you like yet. Like, that's
Sure.
ridiculous. Like, don't, like, out of hand dismiss a whole thing. You know, I think that some people struggle with musicals as a whole because they struggle with forms that aren't reliant on realism.
Okay.
And musicals by nature are never going to be realistic. We don't break into song in everyday life. That's just not how it goes. But I, as a viewer, and I think lots and lots of other people, can handle that. That's okay. We can go on that journey.
Okay, so you're saying that people who don't like musicals don't have enough whimsy in their lives is pretty much.
I don't want to do any no blanket statements, no blanket statements. But I also I'm sure there are people out there who just genuinely do not like this thing, and they're perfectly allowed to feel that way.
Sure.
But I wouldn't stop reading novels just because I didn't like The Fountainhead.
Right. Okay.
So I think I would turn to friends and be like, "What should I read?"
Interesting. And I do have one non-musical related question, which is
I don't know anything about anything that isn't musical. So
I mean, because you live in New York City, and as I've been led to believe, it is now a socialist hellscape under your new mayor. So how's that been going?
Outside, 2 or 3 dumpster fires right now, and
okay, that's not bad.
One baby holding a gun, but other than that, everything looks fine. This is funny. My father-in-law was coming to visit 2 years ago, and before he came, he expressed some anxiety about, there's a lot of protests happening up in Columbia because he's seeing it on the news all the time. This is 2 years ago, and my partner and I looked at each other. And we were like, "Do you know how difficult and annoying it would be to get from our apartment to Columbia? You'd have to take 3 trains. You'd be drenched in sweat by the time you got there. You wouldn't have it's just the reality of what a camera, or a report can say versus what life is like. I think that New Yorkers are incredibly committed to business as usual.
And usually people who don't visit New York very often or don't live there have no concept of how big that city is.
Yeah, even though it is actually, compared to a lot of, worldwide cities, pretty small.
Right. But it's just yeah.
But it's like any place with 8 million people. It's like, it's a chore to get around. You're not...
Sure, yeah.
It's pretty hard to stumble onto something, dangerous. It happens, I'm sure.
So, awesome. Well, I really want to say thank you for giving us some of your time tonight. I really appreciate your insights. They are unique to anyone else that we've ever talked to. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you both for having me. Thank you, Rob. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I guess we need to set up some time for y'all to come to the house, Peter.
Yes, we'd love to.
I know we keep saying that, but we've yet to actually nail a date down. So maybe if you get some time this summer, we can have you over. Rob now lives 5 minutes from me, so he can come over too.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's true.
That's great.
So,
good. I was going to say what county you're in, but I don't know if that's weird.
No,
but I saw in the other day when I was in a rehearsal studio, one of the other studios was like Bucks County Playhouse for South Pacific. A production of South Pacific, so it's coming your way if you'd like to see a 1948 musical that was actually quite progressive at the time.
That is my dad's favorite
racism
musical.
And intolerance. Yeah, it's a great show. Yeah. It's a great show.
Yeah, we used to. I grew up in Bucks County, and we used to go there for school trips all the time. Yeah,
I've never been, but I've heard about it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that'll do us for this week. So thanks again for coming and talking to us, Peter. And thank you to our listeners for listening. This will be out on Monday, Peter. So I'll send you a link when it's out if you want to listen to yourself talk or have John listen to it.
There's nobody I'd rather listen to talk.
That's right. But other than that, I guess then we will say our good nights.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening to Captain's Log Supplemental. You can follow us on Twitter at PodCLS or send us hate mail at podcls3@gmail.com.